I thought I was going to be able to make a 300,000 mile video for my 2003 Chevy Malibu. But unfortunately, it only made it to 299,500. 500 miles short of the goal. But this car owes me nothing. I bought it on Craigslist 2.5 years ago for 500 bucks. And since then, I've put 85,000 miles on it. Almost all stop and go, heavy duty driving, carrying a lot of cargo. And I've done a lot of work to the car. I did the head gaskets a couple of times and various other repairs, a lot of brakes and front end work, but nothing that's out of the ordinary for a car with this level of miles and this level of wear and this amount of use. It finally died a little less than a week ago. Cylinder 6 went dead, so I drove another 50 miles or so on 5 cylinders, and then it decided it didn't want to start and run anymore. I don't blame it. This car has been a beast, a monster, an absolute privilege to own and to drive, and I would recommend to anybody to buy a Chevy Malibu. So let's start at the trunk. This is my bike rack. If you've seen all my other videos, almost every bike that you see has been on this bike rack, on this car. You notice? The trunk latch stopped working after about a week. It's pretty flimsy. In here, normally it's filled with jumper cables and my jack and jack stands and scrap metal and debris. This is actually pretty clean. Got some leaves in there and a hose. I had some problems with the brake lights. Just needed new bulbs. Here's the gas cap, which I removed to put on my new car. A 2000 Cavalier. Like this car's baby brother. Also some studs and lug nuts that went on that car. Let's take a trip inside the Malibu. Now, I would show you the mileage, but the battery's dead because I took the good battery and put it in the Cavalier. But there's the cockpit. I never cleaned it. Never cleaned the dash. Never cleaned anything. I took the stereo out to put that in the Cavalier. This car is dirty. I put a lot of dirty stuff in here. There's my old fuel pump. Had to replace that. Glove box used to have stuff in it. Now it's empty. The front seat, it's pretty messy. But when you do what I do for a living, picking up junk, the junk business, the car's gonna get messy. Here's the window controls. This back window, this one never worked. I never fixed it. It's got some duct tape on it right here. Here's my gasket set. This is I guess it's the timing cover gasket. This was the last coolant leak that I found in this car. See, from the very beginning, I've had cooling system problems, and that's why I've got gallons of water back here just in case, and sometimes they came in really, really handy when I would blow a hose or, you know, needed head gaskets. There's some more dirt, debris, leaves, a battery, a combo. Oh, these are delicious. Let's check out the other side. This car's got tons of scratches. All this right here is from pedals. I mean, I've had tons of junky old bikes on here. You take the pedal off so it doesn't scratch there, but sometimes you don't. Coming in the other side. It's pretty filthy. And I don't think it was quite this dirty when I got it, but pretty much. Belonged to a young family. Their kids spilled a lot of stuff around. I took this headrest off. It's back here. I guess probably just so I could put more cargo in there. Like a grandfather clock or something. Now under the hood, we'll get to that in a minute. Look through there, you see the brakes. I just bought cheap rotors and pads on eBay. They did fine, 50 bucks for the whole front. But once those rotors get warped, they eat pads, so I learned how to do pad slaps on the side of the road. Let's pop the hood. Here's my, you can tell I'm experienced with that. And if you watch my videos, you've seen this engine compartment before. But here it is. Looks like it should run. Here's my headlight bucket. Held in place with zip ties. They do the job. You see here, there's actual coolant in here. But there's a lot of rust in the bottom because this thing had so many leaks and so many issues that I almost never filled it with coolant because I never knew what was going to blow next. Finally I did the radiator. You can watch that video. The head gaskets twice. All the hoses. These are nice new supple hoses. Got it down to the point where the only thing that was leaking, the timing cover gasket, and that stopped leaking once I filled it with coolant instead of water. Then eventually it started leaking a little bit out of here, but I just put a lot more RTV on it. Because this thing has an O-ring, but it goes into aluminum and it's all corroded and messy. Now this was the cylinder that finally ended the car's life, number 6. Had plenty of spark and fuel, it just had nothing else to give. The whole engine compartment was smoking like crazy, not out of the tailpipe, but out of the engine itself. And I was in New Jersey, I was like 50 miles away. I drove home, I diagnosed the problem, I took the fuel injector off so it wouldn't suck raw gas into the cylinder, and I went back down to New Jersey for a while. On 5 cylinders. Car's a champ. Now lately I've been noticing the alternator was making a lot of grinding noises, but luckily I never had to deal with that. The AC compressor down there, the bearing in the AC compressor is worn out. And it squeals. Everybody always has a theory about what's squealing, but it's the bearing in the AC compressor. And I never got bothered to get a bypass pulley because it's kind of a pain to put in unless you take the electric fan out to make yourself some room. So what I used to do is just squirt some oil down there. I had like an oil can, ka-tink, ka-tink, spray white lithium grease on it, and it stopped squeaking for a while. Lately it's been squeaking like crazy. Sometimes when I'm out at night in some kind of quiet residential neighborhood, I wonder what people think. And this belt, this serpentine belt, I mean, this thing's old and raggedy, but this is the one that was on it when I bought the car. I drove around for pretty much the entire time I had the car with a replacement serpentine belt in the glove box, but I never had to replace it, which is good because in order to replace it you have to take that motor mount off. So for 85,000, almost 86,000 miles I had this serpentine belt, and I may have extended the life by putting oil down on that pulley, you know, and I'd try to get the oil right in between the flange and the pulley so it would get to the bearing, but I'm sure some of it got on the belt. And maybe it kind of strengthened the belt, you know? I don't know. Never really had any problems with anything other than the head gaskets, which I had to do a couple times, the radiator, but, you know, that had a ton of miles on it. Other than that, I think one of the reasons that the car finally died is I didn't change the oil very often. I'm trying to be more proactive on the next car. This is the battery from the Cavalier. It's dead. But this car had really amazingly few problems. It was incredibly reliable. Had good power, but it just got to the point where I never knew, is the alternator gonna go? Is this belt gonna snap? Is this AC compressor gonna seize? Am I gonna develop yet another leak in the cooling system? So, what I would do is I would carry all my tools with me. Now I already took them out because they're gonna come and tow this car away in a few minutes. But on the front seat here, I would have all my tools that I use on a day-to-day basis. And in the back seat, I had this whole tub full of tools. Everybody would think that I just got them at a garage sale or something, but it was an entire tub. Every time I'd do any job on this car, including the head gaskets, I'd just put the tools in this tub as I bring them out of my basement workshop, you know, my basement toolbox, so that any job that I had to do on this car, I had the tools in there. You can see the indentation still in the back seat. This indentation from this heavy tub full of tools. I never cleaned this car. I mean, I'd remove debris from it once in a while, but I never washed it, because what's the point? Now underneath the car, after it died and it wouldn't start, I thought maybe the catalytic converter was clogged. So I got under here, hammered out some of the, what is this called, honeycomb. But it wasn't clogged, just didn't want to run. Now a couple years ago, not too long after I got the car, I backed into a curb and hit the back of the tailpipe on the curb, and that sent enough force forward through the exhaust system to break the bolts, which are old and rusty. So for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years, I've had these two little vice grips hold my exhaust system together right there on those two flanges. And the guys at the exhaust shop at Monroe, they thought that was really funny, but they work perfectly. I might try to douse these in WD-40 and see if I can use them again, but these have been clamped to my car for 2 years now. So there's the cat that I couldn't, you know, I hollowed it out just to see if it was clogged, but it really wasn't. Just to see if I could get it to start. Because it would start and then it would stall. These tires, I get tires at Walmart. This one's kind of a Baldini because I broke a strut. Like, this is a new strut from AutoZone. This spring broke and I was 40 miles away from my house, so I went to AutoZone and paid $150 for a strut. And 3 cheers to Chevy because it took me 10 minutes to install this strut. You know, because I had all my tools with me, but it was the easiest strut I've ever installed. Too bad it cost $150. But probably because of that, I didn't have it aligned afterwards, you can see. And these are cheap Walmart Douglas tires. So this car's always had front end problems because it just eats tie rods, inners, outers. You know, you replace the outers, then the inners go. You replace the inners, then the outers go. And every time you have to have it aligned, and once in a while I won't align it because it costs $100. The tires wear out. So I've gone through a ton of tires on this car. But that's alright considering how much driving I do. 35,000 miles a year. I don't think I ever once washed my windshield with this thing. And despite the fact that the AC compressor was squealing, it actually worked even though I never used it. And eventually when I replaced the radiator, I decided to just get rid of the AC hoses. They didn't have any coolant in them, any refrigerant. Here's my kind of hack job. When the tranny lines, see down there? I don't know if you can see that. I'll zoom in a little bit. The tranny lines rusted through. They're hydraulic lines, but I had to fix them with hose clamps. And I had to try to bend my own steel lines. And I don't know how they got such tight bends from the factory, but there's my crude bend. But it worked, it never leaked, never had a problem. Had to put a little more tranny fluid in it, even though this is like a sealed transmission. But it was easy to get to that. And that's another thing. The new Cavalier that I just bought, a 2000, it's actually older than this Malibu. It's got so much space in the engine compartment. Here, you know, it's not that bad, but sometimes it's hard to get in here. Certain things, like getting to this hose, you see I got rid of the spring clamp and put a worm gear clamp on there, because getting down to this hose clamp, you just have to take out everything. But that's about it. Here's the strut that was on it. I never replaced that one. I never did struts on this car except the one that actually broke. See how new this decal is? There's my dirty dashboard. Sometimes I wonder what people think of me when they see me driving around in this beat up old car. But I guess I just don't really care. Because I think I'd rather have a beat up old car than have a $400 or $500 car payment on a new Beamer. And it's beat up because it earns its keep. One time I was in New Jersey, my muffler fell off. You can see right there the tailpipe. And the reason I didn't get a receiver hitch for the bike rack, well, there's the reason right there. You can see my clothesline holding the tailpipe up, or what's left of the tailpipe. There's a lot of salt from the road. Down deeper in there you can see the gas tank, which at some point I did have to pull down so I could do the fuel pump. That was not fun. That tire's going flat a little bit. A lot of rust and scale under this car, but it's just not that big a deal. You know, that's what happens when you know a lot about cars. You figure out which problems are legitimate problems and which problems are no big deal. So this car for $500 plus you know, a lot of repairs. I mean, some months I'd spend $500 on repairs that I did myself. Tires, head gaskets, front end stuff, but sometimes it would be 3, 4, 6 months and I wouldn't have to fix anything. There's some leaves. So in a few minutes a ramp truck will be here to take this car away. I won't show that because I'd have to probably show my neighbor's houses in the background, but just picture a Malibu being pulled onto a ramp truck. Yeah, this door handle started not working just recently. No big deal. So let's put the hood down. Notice the coolant is full. It's the first time the coolant's been full. That's how to get your car to stop leaking coolant. Stop driving it. So that's that.